Wano is a review I will be getting to in just 1 minute. But for now, I have a quick announcement in regards to One Piece and the general future of the channel. If you've somehow been unaware, we have done quite a bit of manga content here around things like Berserk, and it's been a ton of fun. And in addition to that, I also have realized that the type of video I've been making with specifically Berserk is how I should have been approaching One Piece in the beginning. I really wish I had done those more like summary reviews. It would have allowed me to do much more deep reviews, and because the series has been out for long, I really wouldn't have been worried for spoiling those first few arcs and sagas for people at all. That being said though, I don't necessarily want to restart going through One Piece right away because we've had so much One Piece content here on the channel over the last couple of years, and on top of that, One Piece is apparently going to end. Not necessarily tomorrow and not even necessarily next year, but we do know we're entering the final stretches of the story, and when I do this reread through, I'd like to go through with the full context of the entire story and treat it as a completely spoiler-filled walkthrough where we can talk about all the foreshadowing. So between now and then, there's probably going to be a bit of a lack of One Piece content, aside from just whatever random skits or fun little deep dives I managed to slip in between that time. But once One Piece is finished, I am happy to announce I am for sure planning to, yes, go through and do again a new series of deep dive summary reviews in the exact same style I have done of Berserk. But the additional part of this announcement that's quite fun is I'm going to be done with Berserk in probably 6 months or so. I'm going to be taking a small break in August due to some travel, but aside from that, I really feel like we're going to start cranking through Berserk, and once that's finished, it's going to be on you to figure out what series I do in the meantime. I'm going to be working with my Discord server in the coming months to put together a massive list of manga series that I can do a similar treatment for. And then I'll have my audience, all of you, vote which ones, whether it's Chainsaw Man, Vinland Saga, whatever, I will be going through and doing the exact same style of high effort walkthrough review once a week. But do not worry if you're for some reason one of the people who doesn't enjoy manga but you're still watching this video. I'm not going to just make this an entirely manga channel ever. This is a general fantasy and sci-fi channel, and I've just relegated one video a week to servicing one of the, if not the, fastest growing side of science fiction and fantasy for Western audiences, and that's manga. Do you notice I'm trying to actually say it right now? I was just saying manga for a really long time because seeing people constantly comment about my pronunciation was really funny. There will always be fantasy news here. There will always be lore videos. There will always be just general book reviews. But now I'm happy to say, yes, I have fallen in love with the medium of manga. I'm going to continue to bring you reviews for it. And it's so much fun to see a lot of my audience who usually read manga going back and watching some of my older videos and getting into reading traditional sci-fi and fantasy, and watching people who have only read traditional novels within the genre turn around and start reading manga alongside with me. And they often, like me early on, were misjudging the whole medium of manga because they thought it was just for kids. If you've been reading Berserk with me, no. But if you're part of the Discord server, if you all could just start talking about what series you think would be a good option for me so I can put together a massive list for everyone to vote on, that would be great. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into my review, which I'm going to keep largely spoiler-free to the fact that it just happened, and I'm going to be going through this again in the future, of One Piece's Wano. Now, I already reviewed Act 1, which, oh my god, does that feel like a long time ago. And since then, I would say it's fair to say the world of One Piece has forever changed. We have seen Luffy and several other members of the crew display powers and upgrades that are just far beyond what I ever thought possible. Kaido has turned out to be the most pants villain that One Piece has ever had to offer, and that's actually the first angle I want to talk about, and that's going to be in the antagonist, Kaido. What the narrative did very intelligently is, while we're simultaneously seeing why we should hate Kaido now, we also got filled in with a backstory with him, where essentially we get to see Kaido's crimes against a character named Odin, where we really fall in love with them as well. And so you kind of end up with this double relationship to Kaido, where you hate him for what he did, and you hate him for what he's doing now.
It's Kaido, not Kato. I bet I really annoyed you with that pronunciation.
I personally do still prefer Doflamingo for my One Piece antagonist tier list as the #1, just because he kind of gave me that more slimy edge, whereas opposed to Kaido is kind of more of this brute who just has no real moral compass. But having a really good cast of antagonists around Kaido meant that everyone within the protagonist side was also very much so engaged throughout everything we've seen roll out in Wano. That's been a light criticism I've had for previous arcs, where some of the characters who were not strong enough couldn't really step up to continue to be an active participant within the world of One Piece as things continued to scale up and up and up in power. And of course, while some characters like Nami are not nearly powerful enough to stand up to the type of people that Luffy are, they're still actively engaged in some way or another. But of course, when you talk about what happened with Robin, as I've said many times, is probably my favorite Straw Hat. I love her backstory. Water 7 is still my favorite arc, and seeing the unveiling of what has been under the surface for her for so long was jaw-dropping. I personally think she's stronger than Zoro. And also changing the entire reading experience of Wano for me is this is the first time I've had to actually wait for releases. I've just been binging wildly One Piece. Honestly, in hindsight, kind of wishing I had done it slower so I wouldn't have missed so much my first time through. And now with Wano, I've been forced to slow down and kind of just go with the audience. On the flip side of that, because of how great some of the anime episodes got, I also started watching the anime as well until I stopped. And the reason I stopped was because the animation started to get obnoxious to me. For me personally, these like wavy effects started making it feel very like Dragon Ball Z when I was a kid, which for those of you interested in the poll, that's one I'm just not going to do and I'm no interest in doing. And it started to feel less and less One Piece to me. Something the manga never did. The actual animation, it just started having this dissonance that rang truer and truer as things went on, where I didn't feel like I was getting that same comfy feeling I've gotten with the story of One Piece anymore. And that's because it's getting so bombastic, so over the top, that it just pulls away from that tiny little small origin of that crew. And I was still able to keep that while reading the books, despite them telling largely, exactly the same story. And that's going to bring me to another completely subjective criticism. The more powerful the crew gets, especially Luffy's, the less I am connected with them. And it's become a part of the series that I get because we're getting near the end and because it has to finish and we need to see these characters reach their final forms, as this genre always does. I expected it, but it's still not something I enjoy. Cut in, because I want to go ahead and really talk about this point a bit more clearly than I originally did in the first edit. It's not that I think Wano is being poorly told or is not as quality as the rest of One Piece's bit up into this point. It's just a part of the inevitable structure of this story that I'm personally less invested in. And that's a part of a wider discussion that could be a video of its own. Now, people can just have preferences for various parts of storytelling. I love watching journeys get going, and I really love world building. And One Piece right now is in this great section where I am definitely still loving a lot of the small little answers we're getting in terms of world building, but overall I'm getting less and less character invested, which is just shocking to say when it comes to One Piece, because these characters are genuinely some of the most iconic to me personally now in terms of the entire roster I've ever read. But Zoro is not the most interesting to me now, seeing him reach these incredible levels of power where he's up there hitting alongside Luffy. He was the most interesting when I was watching him go up against the greatest swordsman in the world and knowing he had so much more he could improve at. One's just more enticing than the other for me as a reader. Bringing it back into the actual story and not like the meta around it, I think Wano actually in terms of the storytelling is the strongest One Piece has ever had, and that largely can be seen with everything we've learned around Oden and how emotionally resonant that's been. Not only did it do a sensational job of set up Kaido, but the fleshing out of the story, the history of this place has made it probably, despite not being visually my favorite location in One Piece, it's my favorite in terms of the feeling and what it's done for the story. And it really gives you faith that Oda did plan this all out in some kind of sensational way, where, yeah, he's going to bring it all together and deliver the One Piece in a way that's going to satisfy fans. Do I think that's actually possible to satisfy everyone? Absolutely not. But this is coming together so cohesively that you're kind of like, there's a chance. And that's the biggest gift Wano can give its audience, in my opinion. When a story starts to reach its end, you can see cracks form if it hasn't been properly planned and understood. I mean, countless shows and series and other mangas, I'm sure, have had that issue where as you're getting into the later bit, It really feels like it's either being stretched or it wasn't fully planned, plot lines are dropped, things are forgotten. But yes, despite a few smaller tidbits that Oda set up not necessarily coming into play yet, One Piece feels like that symphony, and we are reaching that final conclusion. I may not love this song as much on a technical level, but the emotion it's bringing from me is powerful, and I'm very eager to see what the closing track is going to sound like. No idea why I decided to make this an album comparison thing, but I did. But this does allow me to talk about one more pro that I actually didn't get into in the first recording of this video that I would like to hit on once again, and that's actually a really nice balancing of tone. Wano is kind of the inevitable maturing of One Piece in some ways. In that little adventure where I went back and watched episode 1, just comparing the humor, the way the characterization was utilized to try and tell stories, things are a lot more mature now, not only from an authorial standpoint, but how the characters have grown to us, the readers. So it all feels very natural. But what I find Wano to be doing exceptionally well is using that maturing to make the story itself, in hindsight, from A to Z, or I guess you could say we're at like Y now, feel like this grand epic journey that, yeah, it absolutely is. And I think every One Piece reader at a different point just realizes how genuinely grand the journey across the seas is going to be. Tonally, it's really nice to see the series start actually becoming aware of the fact and treating its own material that way, where it's never been dismissive of its own material, but sometimes really big important deals are going on in the background, small little side things that you don't really feel like they're getting the weight they deserve. Now, especially with Odin, everything feels like it's getting the weight it deserves, and it's just hitting in this way where everything's like, yes, this is that final stage. And I guess in some ways I do really like that as well. And that's going to be my review of Wano up until now, because I don't want to say too much more, because yes, I'm planning to do a detailed walkthrough in the future, but obviously this story is also not done, and I don't want to spoil it for people who are still trying to catch up. Question I want to leave you all with is, I've seen a lot of people saying Wano is their favorite arc, saga arc. Bah, it's been too long. Mine is still Water 7, but let me know what yours is and why in the comments down below. But this has just been your briefer Wano review with the announcement of what is to come, and like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here, and have a good one, y'all. Peace.